Hey, I'm starting a new series on Old Testament end times studies, right? And this is meant to be a complement to my series on amillennialism. If you have not watched my series on amillennialism, I recommend you watch that series first. But if you prefer to hear about the Old Testament and then hear about the New Testament, then that's fine. You're a grown person watching whatever order you like. But there'll be some ideas that are assumed in this video series that you might have an easier time following along if you've already been introduced to them. Right. So the reason for this series, specifically in why it is connected to the amillennialist series, is that so often the questions I get as an amillennialist from my brothers and sisters in Christ and from fellow pastors, the questions I get are about the Old Testament because they believe that the amillennialist scheme abandons so many of the Old Testament promises. And the reason that they believe that is that they're reading the Old Testament with a certain set of assumptions. And that those assumptions make it to where there is only this specific window in which God could possibly fulfill his promises to the Jewish people. And what we are going to have to do is just like we did with the New Testament, take a fresh look from the beginning of the Old Testament and understand how they were understanding these end times frameworks. And then we'll be able to see that these promises are all being fulfilled in what God has done and will do through Jesus Christ in the church. Right? So let me show you a little bit about what I mean. Let me give you three assumptions that I think that the premillennialists bring with them to reading the Old Testament that I think cause them to not see where and how God is fulfilling his promises to the Jewish people. All right. So three assumptions that they bring are, first, they always bring, or maybe I shouldn't say always, they typically have this end times framework in their mind as they read the Old Testament, right? So here we are. This is the first coming of Christ, his death, burial, resurrection, and ascension. This would be the church age. This is Christ coming again. And then they profess there to be a 1,000-year reign of Christ on this earth. And then at the end of that 1,000 reigns and certain events take place, there is the new heavens and the new earth that go on forever and ever and ever. Right? So they come to the Old Testament, assumption one, they carry this in their mind. When in reality, the picture in the mind of the Old Testament authors looks very different. Let me see, make sure I'm not going to write where you can't see me. They are thinking in this framework. And this framework that I'm about to draw, I'm going to defend in a video very soon. It's going to be an early video, right? A kingdom doomed to fail because of the sin of the people, exile from the land because of the sin of the people, and then on the other side of the exile, a restored kingdom that never ends. And I'm going to, even though they wouldn't have the cross there, just so you mentally connect to the things in the other series, I'm going to put a cross here because that ultimately is fulfilled in Jesus Christ. That's their timeline, guys. Right? So there's the first assumption. They're reading the Old Testament trying to understand where every statement fits on this timeline when they should be trying to understand where the statements fit on this timeline. All right? The second assumption that they bring is that every time they read prophecy, unless the text absolutely forces them, they have a tendency to read prophecy from a viewpoint of future to our moment of time. So here's us. Okay? You are here. This is like when those little maps at those theme parks where there's a giant map of the amusement park and there's a little star that says you are here. So here we are in our timeline. And what they do is they assume that all end times prophecy is about the future from our moment of time. Okay? When there's entire epochs of history that were future to them but are past to us. Now, much prophecy is future to us. There's prophecy being fulfilled here. There's prophecy being fulfilled here. There's prophecy being fulfilled here. There's prophecy being fulfilled during parts of this time, right? But when we come with these two assumptions, one, they're thinking of this map and saying, okay, where on this map is it? And it must be future to us. No wonder they read so many prophecies to fall into the various places here. And that's not how they were meant to be understood, right? And the third assumption that they bring is that always it is to be read literally, when sometimes it's metaphor, right? And now let me be fair. A great many passages absolutely are meant to be interpreted literally, right? But if you remember my previous series, my favorite example of this was Zechariah chapter 5. When we go to Zechariah chapter 5, he sees a vision of a 30-foot scroll with writing on both sides, flying around and consuming people in their homes. Now, here's the question. Does God want us to interpret that literally? Are we literally waiting for the day when we look up into the sky and we literally see a 30-foot long scroll flying through the air consuming people? Or does God mean for that to be a picture of, perhaps, we can argue about what it's a picture of, but perhaps could it be a picture of God's pronouncement of curse on the wickedness going forth in judging the world, right? Not a literal scroll devouring people, right? So all these assumptions pile up in what it means. Here's the point of this little introductory video. What it means is we've got to go back to the Old Testament and read it anew, read it afresh, read it from its own perspective with its own timeline charts and and let it teach us before we say what it must be saying and how we must interpret it, right? And once again, I'm going to be aiming for a climactic paradigm shift in the way you're thinking about the Old Testament. We'll try to do a little bit of a survey of some big ideas of the Old Testament, and then we will be particularly interested in the book of Daniel and the latter chapters of the book of Ezekiel. That's not the only place that there's prophecy and talk about the end times, but I think if we work through if we see the general framework before then, and we come and we look very closely at the book of Daniel in the last chapters of the book of Ezekiel, it will cause that paradigm shift, and you'll be able to understand how we amillennialists are reading the Old Testament.